The operation was temporarily suspended, and the discussion turned to confirming Habitaki's status. Indeed, the pseudo-void collapse created by a dominant gadger had a vicious power that seemed capable of finishing her off on its own. Perhaps she was already defeated. Such a hopeful observation resided in everyone's hearts. However, reality was cruel. Danger. Run, quickly. Maria's scream resonated in Yuuki's brain. Without stating complaints or rebuttals, Yuuki reacted. He targeted everyone and made a rapid retreat from the area. Immediately after, a blinding flash exploded on the ground. The shadow of the rocks where Yuuki and the others had been hiding was included in the flash's area of effect. If not for Maria's warning, it was terrifying just to imagine what would have happened. After the flash, dust covered the surface of the earth. As soon as it cleared, the group shuddered at the gruesome result. The terrain had been transformed. You kidding, right? Wasn't the bedrock around here hardened by the influence of high-density magicules? That is correct. It is sturdier than poor-quality magisteel, which is precisely why we were hiding there, but the rocks weren't just shattered. They had turned to dust. The surrounding area had desertified, becoming a gentle rolling hill. The rocky mountain had likely turned to sand and piled up, but the situation was absurd. That flash just now was unbinding molecules. If you take a direct hit, it's instant death. Hearing that, Yuuki was speechless. It was an attack where power didn't matter. Only the result remained. The fortunate thing was that the area of effect wasn't that vast. That said, given that the interior of a circle with a radius of 500 meters was completely destroyed, saying the range was narrow compared to attacks like swims would be the correct phrasing. From Yuuki and the others' perspective, it was barely acceptable only because they could escape with instant teleportation. By the way, do you think I could withstand it with my anti-skill? If you can't, you die. If you're fine with that, feel free to try. It was an answer that completely mocked him, but Yuuki thought it was very like Maria. Of course, he had no intention of trying. Intuitively, he felt that Habitaki's flash wasn't a skill, and would likely pierce through anti-skill. What a truly troublesome opponent, Yuuki thought, racking his brain. And as for the culprit who caused such damage? Having ultra-high-density energy bombs, created without regard for appearances by some of the world's strongest fighters, detonated in succession inside her body, she had taken a fair amount of damage. Especially the pseudo-void collapse. It had immense power and had thoroughly destroyed Habitaki's insides. Her flank, chest, back. Additionally, her left arm was torn off, and she had lost her right leg. Habitaki's forehead was split open, spewing magicules like blood. However, that was all. Her appearance was terrible, but it was far from a fatal wound. In fact, by the time the dust cleared, all her wounds had healed. Yuuki and the group's second great offensive, intended to turn the tables, ended in failure. But was there no effect at all? That was not the case. Habitaki's expression had changed from a no mask to one of rage. We did it. We successfully pissed her off. You're an idiot. A moron. It's a good thing the boss is positive. But that ain't any comfort, you know. Because they knew each other well, the retorts were merciless. Moreover, this spoke for the feelings of everyone present. They were only silent because they had no alternative plan, but what's the point of making her angry? Was the general sentiment. It wasn't solely Yuuki's fault, but since the difficulty of defeating Habitaki had certainly risen, they couldn't laugh easily. They even recognized that Yuuki was amazing for being able to laugh here. However, no one's spirit was broken. They still had the energy to crack and listen to jokes. The fact that Rimuru had returned became hope and supported everyone's hearts. Floating in the air while keeping Habitaki in view in the distance, the group suppressed their presence. Leaving Yuuki aside, a strategy meeting began. We are decisively lacking firepower. That combined technique just now seemed to work, though. A dominant gadger's collaborative pseudo-void collapse was certainly effective. It had managed to shave off a few % of Habitaki's health. However, it was doubtful whether it would work repeatedly. In this case, shall we bring it to a melee battle and focus on buying time? Waiting for help from Rimuru-san or other monsters is also an option. Indeed. If a dominant I challenge her, and a young lady seals her instant teleportation, it seems like it would be a reasonably good match. I'll cooperate too. Positive opinions were voiced, but Omija opposed them. We wouldn't lose in speed alone, but if she aims that area attack from earlier at us, it's over. Hearing this, Sylvia was also at a loss for words. Habitaki's attack earlier had no warning signs. Unlike the battle against Milim, if that were unleashed, it would be unavoidable and result in an immediate game over. If Chloe were here, she would give appropriate instructions naturally, since she can see the future, but with Yuuki, credibility was somewhat lacking. The perception was merely that he was better than anyone else here. Aren't you guys being harsh? Well, only we know the boss's greatness. It can't be helped. Although Kagari comforted him, a leader who cannot give instructions is disqualified. Yuuki understood this point well enough, so he couldn't complain. Now, what to do? The group racked their brains. No good ideas came up. Now that it was clear even stalling for time was life-threatening, they couldn't carelessly make a move against Habataki. That said, time would not wait for them. Everyone was holding a meeting using thought acceleration, but the time remaining was still short. If they didn't establish a decisive policy, what awaited them was defeat. Just as Yuuki was about to say, the only conclusion we can draw is that sacrifices are unavoidable, but... Well, looks like you're in a bind. Choosing this side was the correct answer. Carrera arrived at this land. And, looking at Habataki, she sneered arrogantly. Yuuki was aware of Carrera's existence as well. That said, he wasn't exactly well versed in the details. She was one of the devil lords known as the primordial Yellow John who had been named by Rimuru and became his subordinate. A terrifyingly belligerent entity who had plunged the Imperial army into the depths of terror. That was the extent of his information. She looked stronger than the members currently present here, but if compared to Habataki, he suspected it might be a toss-up 6 of one, half a dozen of the other. However, since Maria was being noisy with warnings like, "Danger, she's dangerous. You absolutely must not anger that woman," it seemed certain that caution was required. Moreover, even Omija and Sylvia were appealing to Yuuki with their eyes. You absolutely must not make that one angry. Coordination is impossible. Don't even think about trying to soothe and utilize her. Just let her do whatever she likes. Even without speaking, their thoughts were coming through loud and clear. Give me a break. Yuuki thought, thoroughly creeped out. Carrera had brought a large number of subordinates with her. It was the 200 members of the Black Numbers released from the ice statues, led by Esprit. Well then, we'll just handle the small fry appropriately. Yeah, I leave it to you. There are guys from Diablo's faction here too, so try not to fight. Ahaha. You are saying that, Lady Carrera. Of course, right. I don't want to get scolded by my lord, after all. I gave the warning, Carrera grinned implies. Ah, she intends to shift the blame, Esprit realized. So, staying quiet for the moment, Esprit dispersed the subordinates as if to say, let's get to work. Remaining alone floating in the air, Carrera slowly turned as if to lock gazes with Yuuki. Ah, this is a dangerous one, Yuuki realized instinctively. He grasped Carrera's personality in an instant. She would absolutely never listen to orders. Rimuru-san is seriously amazing. To actually keep someone like this in line. Yuuki was impressed from the bottom of his heart. Carrera asked Yuuki, so, you don't actually have a plan, do you? No, well, I did have one, actually. Unable to say they all failed, Yuuki mumbled. Pathetic. Is this really the man my lord acknowledged? The way Carrera looked at Yuuki was as if she were looking at filth. As proof, emotions of exasperation and contempt could be clearly felt in Carrera's tone. Good, that's good. Tell him more. Even Maria was siding with Carrera, rejoicing inside Yuuki's brain. Yuuki couldn't handle this. As Yuuki tried to object, Carrera added another opinion. Your opinion, well, it doesn't really matter. I will lend you a hand, so be grateful. It was a magnificent one-sided notification. Then, Carrera commanded. I will finish off that insect, so bring it to me at the right timing. It was an unreasonable demand. Carrera's subordinates might be used to it, but for Yuuki, it was a surprise. In the first place, Yuuki was not Carrera's henchman, so he had no obligation to obey her orders. But, however, there were no allies for Yuuki in this place. Omija and Sylvia knew Carrera's danger well. Wisely deciding they wanted no part of it, they were the first to distance themselves. Koguli and Tyr, perhaps sensing the danger, had quietly erased their presence. Even Lapis was pretending to be a stranger. As for Adalman and Gadr, you are of equal rank as a fellow 12 Guardian Lord, so shouldn't you admonish Lady Carrera? Hahaha, Gadr's jokes are funny. Do you think Lady Carrera would listen to the likes of me? Impossible. Well, I suppose. The only one who can control a primordial is His Majesty Rimuru. They were in resignation mode from the start. Mai alone was flustered, perhaps worried about Yuuki, but she was too unreliable to count. Grasping the situation instantly, Yuuki decided on a policy. The correct answer was to yield to the powerful. Understood. Give me instructions. That's fine. Don't screw it up. Saying that, Carrera flashed a beaming smile. As soon as Yuuki consented, Carrera descended to the ground. With absolutely no intention of hiding, she stood imposingly in the dead center of the hills that had turned into a desert. Then, she screamed. Ajer, come. It wasn't a demon summoning ritual. She simply called out to her subordinate who should be on this battlefield. Naturally, that voice reached Ajer, who was acting together with Dwarf King Gazel. Good grief, Lady Carrera has just revived, yet she intends to work me hard. Fufufu, it means you are relied upon. Well then, King Gazel. Let us share sake again. I look forward to it. For that sake, we must quickly end this war. Ajera and Gazo laughed together. And so, Ajera raced to his master Carrera at gale speed. I have kept you waiting, Lady Carrera. Help me. Carrera said only that, pointing her right hand to the heavens. Understood. Ajera accepted the command. Then, praying, my body is a blade, an immortal blade that destroys enemies. He activated his authority. Through the ultimate gift blade transformation, Ajera turned into a golden katana and settled into Carrera's right hand as if being sucked in. Thus, preparations were complete. Carrera did not worry about Ajera's safety. She concentrated every bit of her power into her right hand. She wasn't thinking about defense at all. It was a suicidal stance. Seeing Carrera like this, Yuuki shuddered. You kidding, right? To be completely defenseless in front of an enemy with such dangerous attacks. It was a dangerous act that anyone could understand, one Yuuki would absolutely never do. However, Carrera executed it calmly. Ajera, who entrusted his life to obey Carrera, also acted as if this were natural. You guys are crazy. He muttered unintentionally, but at the same time, he thought this. Compared to people with this much resolve, he probably looked like half-hearted. Well, worrying about the consequences when the world might end is pretty ridiculous too, huh? Yuuki mocked himself. With Rimura's return, he had felt like all problems were solved. If it were Rimura, he would manage to do something about Habitaki as well. So, if he died here, it would be a dog's death, a meaningless death. That thought had been somewhere in his mind. Before I knew it, I had slipped into a defensive mindset. Well, maybe that can't be helped, but still. Yuuki felt ashamed of himself. To ensure the operation was carried out, he decided to believe in Carrera. You really are an idiot. I will forgive failure, I won't. If you die, I can't make fun of you anymore. I know, Yuuki laughed. I'll handle things here. Leaving those words to his companions, Yuuki teleported behind Carrera. While the entire operation could be discussed via thought communication, this was to reduce the burden of coordinate calculation even a little. Mai followed suit. It can't be helped. I will cooperate too. Saying that, she appeared next to Yuuki.